When you make a film, there are so many things happening from music, sound design, acting, cinematography, story, and so much of it can make it unbelievable. And that lack of believability can make it kind of suck.
Oh, hi, Mark.
And if there's one loose end in the production, it can make the entire thing fail.
You are tearing me apart, Lisa!
So in this video, I want to talk about how you cannot fail as a filmmaker and some tips I learned when we shot our feature film, Swag.
Day 3 is before. I think we're on 3.
Sound speeding!
The first thing to recognize when you shoot on a bigger project is that you're going to have more roles to fill in those spots. So the first person I want to highlight is our first AC and second AC. This is Rye and Robin. They were the assistant camera people. And if you're wondering what that job is, essentially they make sure the shots are in focus, the batteries are put on the camera, the new card is put in, and that the camera is running smoothly. Think of them being the NASCAR pit crew, and then you're, as the camera operator or cinematographer, the driver. The first thing to make a film look cinematic, and this is something I learned from many cinematographers, is to shoot shadow side, meaning to get more silhouette rather than more light. So every time we block a scene out, meaning where the character stands in conjunction to the camera, they're always against the light and the shadow is facing the camera. And you recognize that just makes a better shot. This film we shot on usually 2 to 3 cameras for every scene. This is so we can maximize the coverage. Now, I know for other productions, you probably won't have 2 cameras, nor do you really need it. I would actually say some of the errors or problems of shooting with 2 cameras in a space is that we're in a tiny bedroom. So we had to make sure that one camera was shooting on a long lens. So typically he was shooting between an 80 millimeter and 135 millimeter, and I was shooting on a 50 millimeter or 24 mil. So you're getting one camera shot that's like a medium/wide, but always just kind of keeping you in the medium. And then the other camera was shooting as a close or extreme close-up. This way, the 2 shots had a little bit of diversity and we weren't getting into each other's frame.
And action!
I gained a brand new appreciation for cinematographers and camera operators with these cameras. They are very heavy. I don't know how every cinematographer's back is not just completely broken, because after operating for about a day, I was toasted.
Are you shooting in order?
No.
No. Okay, yeah.
Very out of order.
Very out of order.
You might be wondering, why would you shoot a film in chronological order, or more importantly, why would you shoot a film out of chronological order? First off, what is chronological filmmaking? Well, that's shooting everything in order as the script reads it. But the vast majority of films are shot out of order, and it's very difficult to keep track of if everything's making sense. This is why shot lists and storyboards are important, as well as an overall vision. And to be honest, these are the most crucial parts to why a director is on set, because everything's going to be done shooting scene A at 11 and shooting scene Z at 12. You're going to have a bunch of different scenes sort of happening in different times, and you have to make sure that you're composing the entire piece so that the scenes flow together, not just feel like separate pieces out of 2 different films. So why would you shoot things out of order? Mostly based off of schedule. Sometimes it was because we couldn't get certain actors at certain times. Other times it was weather dependent. The most sense it makes is to shoot out a space completely. So completely axe a space and then move on to the next. So really, as the director, you're not necessarily thinking about how a scene is shot in its individualness, but rather how does it stitch together with the other scenes to make sense? You're the editor on set.
So what if it's like we do a close-up of his phone on the patio, he looks at it, and then we just cut to him like just closing this? Because we've done him coming in and out. I think we can just do a hard cut of...
Yeah, I think so too.
Right now it's lunch, so it's a good time to kind of come take a look at everything, how it's all playing out. So making a feature film is tremendously different than making a short film. Take whatever you're doing on a short film and multiply it by 4. And that's just on a small scale. So we're shooting a very small feature, cranking this out in a week. Typically a feature film takes between 3 weeks to 8 months to make. Are we done with you today?
Yeah.
All right. Leo, great seeing you, man. How's the production been so far?
Smooth as eggs.
Smooth as eggs. We've got Neil. He's just a guest on the set.
Oh, yes, I guess.
We've got Charlie.
Hi, my name is Charlie.
Here's where we have all the camera gear. And all the camera gear is galore. If you're making a movie, keep in mind that you're going to need space for both things. So This is where gear takes up more space than the actual filming space. Day 1, there was just energy. Day 2 is like kind of half tired. Day 3, I'm just like, I feel like we're already at the end of the day and the day's just started.
Don't even fucking think about hanging up on me again.
How this film played out was I would be in the space shooting B camera or C camera, and Charlie, the other director, would be reading lines to the actor because he would be the phone calls. And since he was the director-writer, he was able to articulate the language, and if the main actor flubbed a line or perhaps didn't land on it correctly, Charlie could reset the scene from being on the phone, and if there was any moving or blocking that didn't work on set, I was able to make those calls. So doing the sort of divide and conquer as two directors.
Dude, then do what you feel is right for lighting.
I think just a beat later.
Sure.
So he's more in
Call
the
it.
room.
Yeah.
So he's kind of backing up like this, and as he's backing up, it's
That's when the lighting changes?
Not happening like before he gets into the room. Like
Right now, Chris
Just during
Moresby,
the
the
audio, it
cinematographer,
cues exactly
and
the-
Charlie and I are going through the blocking of the scene to see what would make the most sense within this moment. And basically, when it comes to actor blocking within the scene, you're kind of thinking of a few things. The first is what would make the most sense for the character to do. So this is a dialogue that you would have with your actor after you've sort of figured out what would feel right. Then it's going to your cinematographer and going, what would look the best given these realistic circumstances that our character's going through? And then finally, what does it look like on camera and how do we have to adjust it in the sort of frame? There's this term that I use a lot, which is block, light, shoot. And to kind of go more granular with that, with the blocking, you want to make sure that everyone's kind of a part of it so that you know exactly how it'll look and what's the most cinematic way you can do it. If a character is just walking in their house, there's infinite options to where they could walk, and it's up to the director, partner with the cinematographer and actor to find out what makes the most sense for the character, what makes most sense for the story, and what makes most sense for where the camera is in position.
Right, so we shoot from the hip. So we shoot for like his seconds. So we look up to him when he enters, he comes, we pan with him, and then we come down, and he's now eye level with us. And that's how we get our coverage for this. Cool. And then if we want, we can also get just dead on. Tight.
When it comes to also the way a character is within a space, what does their body language say about how the scene plays? And a lot of the time, the cinematography can always work around body language. And for this film, we were really working off of how our character was positioned.
It'd be great if he was like hunched over, right? Like, because this bag kind of sinks him a bit. He could
you
be
know
like
what?
that.
That's great because if he does that, that can maybe bring us down.
Yeah.
As I tilt down with his head, the picture frame comes in there, and then he can rack.
Positioning to where a person is within a space and how they interact with it can tell a lot about the story and can also allow other departments like the production design and cinematographer to elevate that with what they have. So for example, in this scene, we decided to light the whole room blue because it fit with the emotion with what the character was going through. And if we hadn't have blocked the scene, the cinematographer and us as directors wouldn't have been able to make those creative decisions.
Start with you finally closing it, or we could just start. Yeah, actually, why don't we just start with him just...
There were so many times
like
on making this
landing on the
movie
bed.
where we would suggest things to Chris, and I felt like I was disappointing him because I would just get so excited with my idea, and then he would want to pitch his idea. This is just something that you have to learn when making a film, and working with a veteran cinematographer and camera person like Chris, he knows to dissolve his ego when he gets on set, and this is something just to be cognizant of with all ideas when you go into a film.
Okay, maybe Cam's not handheld. We just go really low with sticks. We're just tight, and I can just be loose with the camera and just kind of move with him a little bit. Does that feel good, Chris? You got some ideas. Let's hear it.
Chris, who took the last cookie? Chris, like that was the look.
Your idea is going to be excellent, but someone else's idea might fit the moment better. And at the end of the day, it's always lands on usually the director's decision of where to steer the ship. So if you're a director, that means you make the final call. Always. It doesn't matter if someone has an excellent idea or perhaps you're insecure about your idea, so you're prioritizing someone else's idea. You're the one who actually sets whatever it is in motion. And if, let's say, you're a DP or anyone who works under the director, it also flows the same way. And even though it might feel like someone might not be making the right choices, in order for a film to run smoothly, in a strange way, it kind of has to work in this like hierarchy situation. And what you can always play in your head is if you don't like how that director works, or you don't feel like you and that other collaborator are jiving, not to work together on the next project, or they need to learn how to collaborate better. But in these moments, it's always good just to have one person making the final decisions, because if everyone's making the final decisions, no one's going to be making a decision at all.
Let's see it on camera.
All right, thank you guys for the hustle. Love it.
Thank you, everyone.
Action.
One of the big things I learned from shooting a feature, and specifically this film, is instead of trying to think of what happened 10 scenes earlier, just think of what happened the scene prior and what was the energy in that to lead us to this moment. And then what is the energy of this scene ending going to lead us into the next? And it's a much easier way, rather than being like, oh, like this thing happened, and rather be, okay, we were exiting this thing. This is how this felt. How does that set us in this pocket of this moment now? So probably watching this video, you've been hearing some dope tracks. Maybe these little titles have come up. You're like, man, I really like that song. Well, that leads me to the sponsor of this video, which is Track Club. Track Club, I would say, is one of the best music platforms on the internet for a dialed in, tailored approach. Let's say you're making a film, you need a tailored score that fits it exactly, but you can't afford a composer to make it. Track Club has a long list of songs and scores available that do the trick. But what can make them perfect is you can go into their drop down on each song and go into Mix Lab, which is going to customize the track using stems, not just a stem of one thing or the other. Every single instrument in the film, you can isolate, amplify, change the beats per minute, export solo or export them all, and that way you can have a very specific sound to your film. I'm not one of those people who like every single instrument playing throughout a scene. I like it dialed in and specific. That's how you heard this whole video. It doesn't sound like a music video, it sounds like a documentary, and the only way to do that is to work with stems. So if you want a tailored experience when it comes to making your films at an affordable price that sounds like a professional quality, like a legit composer, like made it specific to your movie, and you did it in post-production, you did it on the internet, check out Track Club. You can hit a link in the description below. Viewers of this video can get a discount, so do not hesitate. Track Club gives you the specific sounds that you need to make the movie you want on screen.
What's that?
I don't want you to slip. That's all.
I'm not gonna slip. I got it. You're the best. You're the best, Robin.
Readjusting the All right, and frame.
And action.
Actors getting makeup done. There's certain jobs that I think on an independent film you sort of skip by, but I would actually say some of the key features that are underlooked for projects is makeup, wardrobe, and production design. Image quality can't affect story or motivation, but makeup and wardrobe can, and I would always fight for stuff and elements that help convey the story more than certain gear.
Okay, cut.
Dope.
Sweet.
Dope. Can we get the wipe shot?
This is May, our assistant director. So what is an AD? On our set, May helped us with the call sheet. Now, our producer, Eric, actually ended up creating the call sheet, but on a regular film set, the assistant director comes up with a call sheet, meaning your sort of list of tasks throughout the day. It's the map to navigate you what you're doing. So if you're shooting in this run room, when this actor's coming, and it's basically your guiding light throughout the day. And the assistant director is just to make sure that you're hitting your beats and making sure you're making your time, and not necessarily making big creative decisions, but more or less keeping you aligned for the day. In this setup, we're shooting handheld, and then in the back, if you notice, we have all of these black pieces of fabric in the back wall. This is to create a massive wall of negative fill, because without it, there was windows, a mirror, and a massive white wall, which was not giving a lot of depth within the shot. Like what I said before, you're gonna want more, you wanna be shooting on shadow side, and if you can't shoot on shadow side because there's so much light coming in, you can always create it by putting black fabric up, and it's a great tool to add more intensity. We also applied it because the film is getting more dramatic at this point, so we wanted to have our cinematography to have more depth within the frames to build out that. In this setup, you'll notice we're shooting with the dolly, and then I have my gimbal on the dolly beside the Alexa 35. And this might be a weird setup where you're like, what is happening here? Why are they doing it this way? The reason why I was on the dolly with the cinematographer was he was shooting an extreme close-up, so he was shooting on 135 mils, super tight on the characters, and focusing on one character. I was shooting on a little bit wider, so probably a 70 mil, and capturing both actors kind of panning back and forth. Because we were shooting at a tight time frame, we were always trying to shoot on as many cameras as possible to maximize the coverage. And at this point, it made the most sense for me to hop on the gimbal and sort of be out of the way of the main camera. And then when you watch the film, you'll recognize the two cameras are almost impossible to tell between which one is which. What's the difference between an $80,000 camera and a $3,000 camera? Why wouldn't we just shoot this on a smaller camera? That is something that I've always wondered and questioned about when it comes to making a film. And this is a scenario where a smaller camera trumps a big bulky camera. We had these like moving shots that would lead the character through the space. And we had a Steadicam on set, we had a Steadicam operator on set, but the time it would have taken, it made way more sense for me to shoot these little inserts with my FX3 on the gimbal, bang it out and get the shots that we needed. And in that case, we were actually able to shoot more. The smaller the gear, the more takes you can get. This is probably why we see Gareth Edwards shooting his new film with Greg Fraser on the FX3, because of how often you can do things. It's less file size, it's more nimble, and you're able to get more coverage. Rather than with the big cameras, you get less coverage, higher quality shot, and less ability to put it into different spots. Even with this shot, like if you look at this shot specifically, I do this move where it's like a dolly shot tracking our main character. I then lock off to a certain point and then hold on that frame, rather than treating my gimbal like it's a piece of gear that can quite literally go anywhere. I put it into a small window and make it just one piece of equipment. So for example, if we're doing a scene, I'm gonna say the gimbal is a dolly. That's all it's doing. It's mimicking dolly movement and it's capturing that. But as soon as I say, well, no, it's actually, now it's gonna be a Steadicam, or now it's gonna do these weird, wacky movements, it almost takes the audience out and you start recognizing that it's a movie.
So you guys see where Zach's camera is? Yep. So basically we're gonna spike that and be walking right towards that.
Okay.
Yeah. And you wanna carry him like that? Yeah.
Okay.
So you two are a little bit closer.
And
together.
Ryan, I'm gonna
Carly,
need you to
hop
tuck
over
away.
here.
Yep.
And yeah,
Because we were shooting a big character scene in a park, we wanted to make sure that we were as small and as speedy as possible, because if we had a big crew coming down, it would slow down the entire production. So it was just myself, my assistant camera person, Robin, just making sure that I wasn't gonna back and fall over a cliff, and Charlie calling the shots and figuring out the blocking for the actors. And we were able to bang out one of the coolest looking scenes in the movie in about 20 minutes. Everything came together, everything worked out, and we came into this scene specifically with the intention of, we're actually gonna shoot this like it's an event rather than shooting it like it's a movie. So however I would go into like event videography, like where it's like, okay, we're just gonna like capture this moment, and my skills of actually being like a wedding videographer, for example, I just put that into this. I'm like, it's just like a wedding. These characters are gonna be doing the same thing over and over again. They're posing for their portrait, and I'm gonna shoot around it. And because we were working with just such incredibly talented actors, they knew how to land on their marks, feed the camera, read the scene, over and over and over again. And that would, I say, be the biggest difference between, let's say, working with your friends, working with beginner actors, and working with professional actors, is that in this moment, everyone knew how to operate almost at a robotic level, where it's like, okay, everyone take one step back. Everyone would robotically almost take one step back, and it was so cool.
That's why I want to do angle from here. Like say
Great.
angle from
Cool.
here.
Cool.
And like have it tight.
Cool. All right. Cool. Ready? Camera's rolling.
And action.
How a scene is typically shot from when you yell action to cut, especially when it comes to a dialogue scene. If you have a camera on a dolly, it will just rock back and forth into throughout the scene. And then in the edit, you'll find the moments to where it's catching that kind of move. A good operator like Chris or his grip, Kenji, was able to move the dolly and know when the dolly should move on certain lines of dialogue. And if there's a piece of feedback you give to a cinematographer is go, I want the camera to be moving at this part. At this part, it could probably be stationary, and at this part, it should move. And those are good lines of direction to give to your camera team. Making a film is like a band composing a piece. If every instrument is incredibly loud, you're not going to be able to focus on one or the other. The main thing I would suggest is to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. So knowing just a little bit about each one of the jobs that are available, whether it's a bit about cinematography, a bit about wardrobe, a bit about how to block people, and then allow the other collaborators to sort of tap you into the right direction. Eventually, you'll become a lot more of a master, but hopefully you're always surrounding yourself by masters so you can just still be that jack of all trades, and the people who you're surrounding yourself with will always sharpen your tool, and you're never actually better than anyone on set. Thank you, friends, so much for listening, watching, and learning. I hope you learned a little bit as much as I learned a lot in this. If you liked the video and want to see more behind the scenes, there are more breakdowns in the description below. This is part of a playlist of my sort of on-set documentaries. I've made several of these now, so each one has a bunch of nuggets of wisdom, and they're their own masterclass in their own. So thank you for listening, watching, and learning, and absolutely love y'all. Have a great day, and let me know. Are you interested in making a feature? Is this something you want to make? What's the deal? Yeah.